Hey, welcome back to a new installment of the Wide Right Podcast. Manny Navarro here from The Athletic, joined once again by Carlos Ledo of the MIA All Day Pod. It is Thursday, September 12th, right around 8 o'clock. Carlos, the Dolphins and Bills are about to kick off, and I just used my Hard Rock Bet app for the first time. Did a little fun parlay on touchdowns for the Bills and Dolphins. $10 bet, could potentially win 120 off of it, so I might be able to cover dinner this weekend.
Listen, I got five on it, bro. Like the Looney said. But yeah, we need to speed this podcast up. I need to see Tua tongue you down lower, beat the Bills.
All right, we will see what happens with the Finns tonight. Your Hurricanes, of course, are 2-0. They moved into the top 10 of the AP poll this week. Face Ball State on Saturday afternoon at Hard Rock Stadium.
The
Miami is eight.
Fighting David Lettermans.
Yes, the Fighting David Letterman's
That's
30,
that's her claim to
36,
fame.
36 and a half point favorite. Miami in that game. Miami is also number one, Carlos, in the Athletics ACC power rankings. The ones that Grace Rayner and I put together every
Yeah,
single
yeah.
week.
Somebody had a little influence on that one, huh?
Yeah, I wanted to spend some time talking about the rest of the ACC in this show because ultimately, Carlos, as you know, this season is going to be judged on if Miami can finally win the ACC. We'll also get to some mailbag topics. We'll get to that in a bit, but let's start by zeroing in on the Canes and what we should take away maybe from these first two games, Carlos. I got some stats and numbers I'm going to share with you, but a lot of young guys are getting a chance to play, which is good. Again, this weekend against Ball State should be the same story. We'll talk about the program getting back to what we want them to be, right? We want Miami to be a dominant championship contender every single year, like it was in the glory days. I think a big part of that, obviously, is getting young guys snaps, Carlos. You know how valuable that was. What were the major takeaways for you from FAMU? Did you watch the game at all?
Yeah, I did. I mean,
Okay.
listen, I'm an addict, bro. I'm this is like I'm like Pookie from New Jack City. When the Canes are on, I can't not watch. Like maybe I don't watch it live from the beginning if I've got something going on. But bet your ass I've got that on the DVR and I'm pulling it up as soon as I get home. So my takeaways, not just from FAMU, for me, the takeaways of the first two games are Cam Ward is special. And Cam Ward not only is special, he covers up things that could potentially be problems for this team and that offense and makes them sort of smooth. He smooths them out, right? He covers those gaps. Um, there's if they run up against a team, I think that can actually pressure the quarterback and get to him a little bit and force him to throw the ball quicker, there could be problems for the offense. But the thing is that offensive line is really good, man. And for me, one of the surprising things from FAMU was is that Okunlola didn't jump into that left tackle spot when Jalen Rivers wasn't available. They had Bell jump in there,
Yeah,
and he
Markel Bell, the
actually
JUCO signee.
and he did pretty well. He actually played again. It's FAMU, but considering this is his first taste of major college football, I think he played pretty well. He moved well for a big guy too, which was surprising. So to me, that the Cam Ward effect is nothing that should be sort of just overlooked. It is the storyline of the season. He is the reason why the Hurricanes have a chance at the playoff, why the Hurricanes should win the ACC and have a chance to compete within the playoff. The other thing to me that's impressive is Xavier Restrepo has gone from a guy like we talked about last week, early in his career that had issues with drops, issues with consistency his freshman and sophomore year, to now being probably the best slot receiver in the country. He is uncoverable in that slot. He gets open and he makes plays and he doesn't drop the ball. He's dependable. He reminds me of an OJ McDuffie for the Dolphins during OJ's time because he's so dependable in that slot. The other thing to me is the rise of Elijah Arroyo finally having a tight end again and him being so effective thus far, the first two games in the season is promising. Offensively, one of the things that disappoints me, or the two things that have disappointed me a little bit, are, not being able to run the football as well as I think they should be able to run the football. And I think the outside receivers not being able to make plays the way they should be able to make plays. I think the outside receivers are struggling outside from Cam Ward buying time to get open. So, and the only guy that seems to consistently be making plays and getting open, even when Cam Ward breaks free of the line and gets a little extra time, is Isaiah Horton, which is nice to see. Another guy getting in there. Defensively, I think you know, uh, to me, Austin and Barron are a revelation. Barron specifically, coming from Tennessee and coming over here, he looks like, a first round pick almost at defensive end. He's a legit guy. Once Ruben Bain gets back, those two guys are going to be monsters and they're going to be terrors for opposing offenses. The defensive line as a whole has played very well. Francisco Mauigoa to me is a stud. He's first or second team All American type linebacker. The best middle linebacker that I've had here in quite some time. He fits that mold of, a Colin McCarthy, of a Dan Morgan, of those kinds of guys, of, a Michael Barrow, that front line type of middle linebacker kind of guy. He makes those kinds of plays. Wesley Basaint, I think, is starting to progress a little bit. He's starting to show what he's capable of. Had a great interception against FAMU. And I think the secondary has some issues still, but I think the safeties are doing a good job, better than what I anticipated.
Well, I want to throw some numbers at you. And again, guys, this is the first 2 weeks of the season. There's only been a couple of teams that have played 3 games, like Georgia Tech. So when you
Or
when
like Ball State, who got shafted and had the bye week in week 1. Like, what kind of shit?
right, yeah, and then they had a shootout with Missouri State that they won 42-34. I guess to pick up their first win of the season. But the point is, it's not a huge sample size, so please understand that we're not making any huge determinations after 2 weeks against Florida and FAMU. But some numbers to share nonetheless. Cam Ward has the highest PFF grade among all quarterbacks in the ACC and owns the second highest QB rating among all FBS quarterbacks with at least 50 pass attempts so far this season. So the Heisman hype is very much real. I think he's
Better
very
than
much
that Sanders kid, huh?
better than that Sanders kid. He is second to Jackson Dart, who was the quarterback at Ole Miss in terms of QBR, college football QBR, with quarterbacks with at least 50 pass attempts through the first couple weeks of the season. Legitimate, Carlos. We talked about him earlier. I don't know that we need to continue to harp on how great Cam Ward is because we're going to do that a lot this season. Miami's rushing offense, Carlos, ranks sixth in the ACC in yards per game. They're averaging 184.5 yards per contest, which if they do that for the entire regular season, that's a really good sort of solid average per game. Right now, nationally, it's not among the top 40, but that's because it's the first 2 weeks of the season, and some teams have put up absolutely ridiculous numbers against FCS schools and
Which
whatnot.
to
And
me is
so,
concerning, like I said, because they've run up against a bad run defense in Florida and FAMU. So to
right.
me, being sixth in the ACC and top 40 in the country for a team that you expected to be dominant up front and to be able to have their way with people running the football is a little concerning.
They are averaging 5.2 yards per carry, and Damian Martinez ranks eighth in the ACC in rushing yards. He's averaging 78 yards per game and
Not
six
much.
yards a carry. I don't think they're just running him a lot yet. I think he's going to put up some bigger numbers as they go on. All right, Miami ranks number two. Here's an impressive stat, Carlos. Miami ranks number two nationally in pass plays of 20 yards or more. They've got 14 this season. Only Ole Miss and that Jackson Dart guy we were talking about have more. They've got 15. Xavier Restrepo, as you mentioned, comparing him to OJ McDuffie, the Dolphins great, averaging 19.64 yards per catch. That's a huge average for a slot guy. Tied for 21st nationally with 216 receiving yards. And you mentioned Isaiah Horton earlier, 8 catches for 136 yards. So Horton's done a nice job. We haven't seen a whole lot of Sam Brown, haven't seen a whole lot of Jacoby George yet, outside of that touchdown at
Well,
the
we
end
see
of
him
the
Sam
Florida
Brown.
game.
He's just not catching the ball.
Well, I mean, we're not seeing a lot of production out of those guys. But you know what? It's still early. I'm pretty sure those guys are going to play some valuable roles for this offense. Here's another one for you. Elijah Royal, you talked about him, third leading receiver on the team at the moment in terms of yards. 5 catches, 106 yards, and a touchdown. Miami's tight ends have combined to make 11 catches for 183 yards and 2 scores. If you're
Which
wondering,
surpasses all of last season.
well, last year Miami's tight ends combined for 18 catches, 154 yards. So the yardage is already passed and the touchdowns already passed, but the catches they're still seven shy. So that is important. And then finally to wrap up the offense, and we can sort of summarize here our final thoughts on the offense. Offensive line in terms of pass blocking efficiency ranks 34th among 69 Power Four programs. Hurricanes have allowed 12 pressures and 1 sack and 80 pass blocking snaps, according to Pro Football Focus. Last year, Miami finished 12th among all Power Four schools in pass blocking efficiency, allowing 11 sacks for the entire season. The highest graded offensive lineman to this point is right tackle Francis Mauigoa. He is 12th among ACC offensive linemen who have played at least 50 snaps. Zach Carpenter, the center, is next. He ranks 18th in the league among linemen, and then Inez Cooper after him, starting right guard, is 50th. Not a great number among the 80 guys, the 80 offensive linemen in the ACC who have played at least 50 snaps. But Carlos, overall, to summarize it, what would you grade Miami after 2 games on offense?
It's difficult to say, man, because a lot of it has to do with Cam. It's the Cam Ward effect. I
Hmm.
mean, not grading on a curve just based on what they've produced, and not allotting any sort of detraction for Cam Ward. I'd say it's been an A minus. To me, B plus. I'll say A minus. I think to me the disappointing thing is the run game thus far. Like you said, I think the passing game. Um, Also the pass protection hasn't been elite. It's been good. Cam Ward just covers it up with
Right.
his ability to move in the pocket and his wanting to move in the pocket. I guess some of those pressures can be attributed to him just wanting to hang on to the football, letting guys break open. So to me, overall, based on production and results, it's A minus. Based on what I see on the field, the initial reads, the initial things that are happening, B plus, B, I would say.
You expect more. You're just like Mario Cristobal. You expect more from these guys.
I honestly expect more from them in the run game. I expect them to dominate more up front offensively on the offensive line, and I expect more from the guys on the outside in terms of being able to get open and get separation, which hasn't happened yet. They're getting separation only on secondary moves when Cam Ward buys time, and that's concerning.
Yeah. Listen, you're not the only one who feels this way. Cam Ward has said there's meat that's been left on the bone. Mario Cristobal has said there's meat left on the bone for this team. So that's good. You want these guys to still be hungry and still know that they haven't played their best game yet. It's only 2 games in, and the opponents will get tougher here. And we'll talk about
I don't
some.
want them peaking 2 games into the season like I did in sixth grade, right? Like
All right.
once
Fair enough.
once I went over the bra in sixth grade, that was a highlight of my life.
All right, let's talk about the defense. Miami's 42nd nationally in yards allowed per game rushing. That's seventh in the ACC. Canes are allowing 3.6 yards per carry. Of course, you take out that long touchdown run that they gave up against the Gators, and that average goes down to 2.3 yards per carry. So, but that still counts, still affects your average. Tennessee transfer Tyler Barron ranks second nationally in tackles for loss, 5.5. Second as well in sacks. He's got 4 through the first 2 games. Elijah Alston, who you mentioned earlier, second on the team with 1.5 sacks. This is all done without Ruben Bain, mind you. Okay, and Damari Brown as well, who didn't play much against Florida or and basically was out the entire game against FAMU. So 2 of their best defensive players. Those are the numbers they put up. And then Pat.
And without any statistical production from Mesidor yet.
Yes. Miami's pass defense, meanwhile, ranks sixth nationally in opposing QB rating. Opponents have completed 53.7% of their attempts for 260 yards. Miami has yet to surrender a passing touchdown. They've recorded 5 interceptions. That's a pretty good start to the season. We were worried about the secondary, Carlos. Really, the most impressive stat to me of all that pass defense stuff, only 4.8 yards per attempt and just two passing plays allowed of 20 yards or more.
That is very impressive. I mean, they must be hearing our podcast.
I guess if you want to take credit for that.
No,
What
no, I certainly will.
what's the grade for the defense so far?
I'd give them an A.
Okay.
I'd give them an A. Aside from the one drive by DJ Lagway in that Florida game, where obviously the newness of Lagway and his ability to create on his own sort of caught them off guard a little bit. I think they've been dominant. They took a FAMU offense that albeit FCS offense, a really highly rated offense in that league. A team that could score points, that has a lot of weapons. The team that has a lot of guys that transferred in from major Division I programs and filled up that roster and handled them pretty well, pretty easily. And to me, I think here's a hot take for you. I think FAMU might be a tougher opponent than Ball State.
Could be. They had an elusive quarterback that created some problems early on in that game and extended plays, and I think that's going to be what hurts Miami this year is when they can't get to the quarterback. It's
Yep.
like every team in college football. All right, I wanted to share some more numbers for you because we worry about true freshmen and how much they're playing, right? And everybody makes a big deal about which true freshmen are getting into the game. By my count, Carlos, we've seen 16 true freshmen get into games so far. That doesn't include Markel Bell, of course, who's the starting left tackle last game, but he's a junior college kid, so he's not a true freshman. OJ Frederic, the cornerback, was in the starting lineup for FAMU, so he is the one true freshman to start a game so far for Miami. Um, Frederic, 67 defensive snaps. That's seventh most on the team to this point. He's also played 15 special team snaps. Elijah Lofton has played the most of anybody on offense, 34 snaps on offense, 27 on special teams. Jordan Lyles next. 28 offensive snaps, 8 special team snaps. Then Justin Scott, the five-star defensive lineman, he's fourth, 19 defensive snaps at this point. Zaquan Patterson, the safety, 18 defensive snaps, as well as 14 more snaps on special teams. I don't want to go down the whole list, but those are the top five guys. I feel pretty good, Carlos, because when you and I were identifying guys that could potentially play for Miami this season, I think we named all five of those guys
Yeah,
among freshmen.
yeah. Not only that, but I think to me, what's most impressive about these guys is you can tell the difference in terms of the caliber of player they're getting from
Hmm.
high school ranks with under Mario Cristobal as opposed to what was being brought in here over the last 15, 20 years prior. These guys look like grown men already game
Hmm.
one. They look like they're sophomores and juniors as opposed to guys that were just playing high school ball a year ago. They look physically developed, which is impressive. And it's just a testament to the recruiting Mario's doing.
All right. I mentioned the power rankings that Grace Rayner and I did for the Athletic. They'll be coming out Friday, which is when you guys will be listening to this podcast. So you'll be able to look at the complete list. But I'm just going to give you the top 10 for the ACC because I think we need to keep our eyes on what everybody else is doing, right? This is a year that Miami can contend and win the conference. You kind of want to know how other teams are doing because you're fighting for those top two spots. No divisions this year. You got to be one of the best two teams. All right. Miami and Louisville remain number one and number two in our rankings. That's the way we had it a week ago. They stayed there. We bumped Clemson up from number five to number three after they destroyed Appalachian State. I don't know if you watched any of that game, Carlos, but their offense woke up. Cade Klubnik woke up.
5 TDs, man.
Yeah, he played really, really well. Syracuse climbed 3 spots from number seven to number four. I
Beating
watched
Georgia
that
Tech.
game. Yeah, they beat Georgia Tech. I watched that game from beginning to end. They kind of got a little scary ending there because Georgia Tech was able to recover an onside kick and score. So it was closer than it was, but I thought Kyle McCord looked fabulous. He looks like the second best quarterback in the conference behind Cam Ward, in my opinion. The Cal Bears, Carlos, moved up
The
from number
Bears.
they moved up from number 11 to number five in our poll after they went into Auburn in SEC country and won 21-14. That Bears defense, Carlos, is really, really good. I think they're +7 in the turnover margin. Reminded me a little bit of the 2017 Hurricanes in terms of just how
Opportunistic.
opportunistic is the right word, Carlos. That's what I was going for. Just making plays. I don't think they are as good as that Miami team was that won 10 games, but they can certainly win 8 or 9 with that defense continuing to win the turnover battle and Fernando Mendoza
And
protecting
they
the
got that
ball.
Columbus kid at quarterback.
Yeah, as long as Mendoza protects the ball, I think this Bears team could be one of the toughest challenges for Miami down the stretch. Georgia Tech, we dropped them 3 spots to number six after their loss at Syracuse. Boston College moved up a spot to number seven after they beat Duquesne. I think shut them out at home. North Carolina moved up a spot to number eight after they beat Charlotte. Pittsburgh moved the Panthers up. Pat Narduzzi, the ACC champions from just a few years ago. Horrible year last year, 3-9. I saw the end of that game against Cincinnati Cardinals. They were down by 21 points at the end of the third quarter, came back to win 28-27 at Cincinnati. That offense under Cade Bell's son, who's the offensive coordinator there at Pittsburgh, looks a lot better. I like Eli Holstein, the quarterback that they got from Alabama. The Panthers, nice turnaround after such a horrible year last year. And then number
Narduzzi's a hell of a coach, man.
he is. He is. And number 10, we left Virginia Tech right where they were the week before, even though they beat Marshall at home. I moved some teams past them that I think have had more of an impressive start than the Hokies. Carlos, let's transition to this conversation. Miami has to play at Louisville, at Syracuse, at Cal, at Georgia Tech. They host Virginia Tech in the ACC opener in a couple of weeks. Which of those opponents in our top 10 would you say has the best shot of beating Miami?
Louisville.
Number two. Go with the and why? What is it about the Cardinals so far that's impressive? Because they really haven't played anybody yet.
It's not that. It's the one team that really out schemed that defense last year for the Hurricanes was Louisville.
Hmm.
I think the one that came closest behind Louisville was North Carolina with Drake May. But really, what they were able to do to the Hurricanes, Lance Guidry's done a fantastic job ever since he got here, but that was the one team he had no answers for. So that's concerning. So the Louisville game is probably going to be a shootout, in my opinion. And, I think with Cam Ward, we have the advantage, but they have a potent offense. And if they can get some things going on defense, it could be a problem. So to me, Louisville's the one that's a main contender to defeat the Hurricanes. Syracuse, yeah, Colin McCord's a good quarterback. I don't think their defense is good enough to slow down Cam Ward and to slow down this team. So if it ends up being a shootout, which I don't think it would be, I think the Hurricanes have enough firepower to overcome and overwhelm Syracuse. Georgia Tech, that home field advantage in Atlanta isn't real great. It's just a bunch of kids doing math problems in the stands, trying to figure out the next engineering problem and do their projects, trying to get on Shark Tank. But so to me, Georgia Tech to me isn't a big threat. I don't think their quarterback is consistent enough to actually defeat the Hurricanes. He's got good wheels. He's a little elusive in the pocket, but throwing the football, he's very inconsistent. Their defense is better than I anticipated, but I don't think it's good enough. So yeah, to me, it's Louisville. Louisville is the one that presents and poses the biggest challenge to the Hurricanes. Florida State will still present a challenge because it's a rivalry game. I think the advantage at home for the Hurricanes is going to be big, and I think Cam Ward, like I said, is the main advantage.
Cal and Virginia Tech are the other two teams that I mentioned, Carlos. The one thing I will say about Mendoza, hasn't made any mistakes really so far this year. Three touchdowns, completing 69% of his attempts, 142 QBR, which is 10th in the ACC.
The yards
They're
per attempt are low, I think.
Yeah, and their running game with Jaden Ott really hasn't gotten going. In fact, Jaden Ott only has 65 yards rushing through the first two games, but he has been a little bit banged up. So we'll see if the offense picks it up. But the one thing I will say about Louisville, Shuck, who won a Pac-12 championship with Mario Cristobal as coach at Oregon, has been as good as advertised, and it's a kid that
Yeah,
was a good quarterback and unfortunately dealt with a bunch of injuries in his career at Texas Tech that ended seasons. He looks like a seventh year experienced guy. Six touchdowns, no interceptions so far. He's been solid. And then Louisville has a bunch of young running backs. My concern for Louisville was their running back position after they lost two guys to the NFL. Isaac Brown, a freshman, a kid here out of the Homestead area. He's averaging close to 13 yards a carry. He's got
he's
166 yards rushing on 13 attempts. Granted, they've played like Austin P and I don't know who else. If it was like Jacksonville State or somebody like that. But still, you mentioned the play calling, and just the way that they get the most out of their guys on defense. Louisville's defense yards per play, second in the ACC, 3.36 yards per play. Cal, the next best defense, 4.54. Virginia Tech 8th, Georgia Tech 13th, and Syracuse 15th among the 17 ACC teams in terms of yards per play. So your point on Syracuse was definitely accurate. Let's get to some mailbag questions because I know we
most of my points are accurate, Manny. Do not just give me the Syracuse little carrot and dangle that in my face.
you do a phenomenal job every show, Carlos. I would never criticize you for
My
for
wife does, and that's all.
yeah.
That's all I need.
All right. This is from
Keeps the
Nick.
fire going.
This is from Nick Strong, KY Kane 23. Hey, do you have any intel on how to get tickets for the Miami Louisville game? I want to sit in the Miami section that Louisville provides to Miami. I think that first goes to season ticket holders, Carlos, in terms of being able to buy road tickets that are offered uh
Go to
to
StubHub.
but go to StubHub. I know you want to sit in the Miami section, but you might have to go through the Louisville section.
Just get in the building, bro.
Columbus Kane. Kane Columbus 97444 on Twitter says, "Do you think we go more conservative once ACC play starts like we did last season? I hope Mario has grown and sees his team we have this year with legit quarterback. Do you worried at all about Mario's aggressiveness?"
No, because I think at this point with Cam Ward, he feels a lot more comfortable at the quarterback position to be able to open it up a little bit. Now, do I think they're going to get more complex and more open with the offense? I don't necessarily think so because I think Mario and Shannon Dawson are going to feel like, you know what we're doing works. Nobody stopped it yet. Until they could stop it, we're not going to change it. There's no need to get fancy with it. They'll obviously have a wrinkle or two every game, but it's
Mm-hmm.
not like going to be like they're just going to all of a sudden open the offense up and be something different than they've been thus far.
All right, let's get to the next category here. This is from Cali Kane 818. What makes you believe that this team this year will be able to live up to the hype they've been given so far this year, outside of us having Cam Ward as our quarterback? I'll answer this. I'll start to answer this, Carlos. To me, I think the front seven on defense is legit,
Yeah.
and I think the playmakers at wide receiver between Restrepo, Arroyo, um, and some of the other guys that they've got there. I think the running backs are legit. Uh, that's all you need to win the ACC, and if you win the ACC, you're a
You're in the
contender.
playoffs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Um,
you're right. I think to me the front seven, well, really front six, are at an elite level right now. And I think the willingness and the ability to use the tight end and the running backs in the passing game
mhm.
alleviates, and covers and masks a little bit of the inability of the outside receivers to get things going. and Restrepo is a game changer at the slot. So sometimes you don't get that production from the outside guys if you're capable of getting it from a slot guy and a tight end. Well, look at Josh Downs. Josh Downs was a slot guy, right? Um,
Hmm.
who was the guy from Pitt that went to USC that was another a slot guy that was a monster? I forget his name. Um, but those are the kinds of guys you can rely on, guys in the slot that can be monsters that don't have to be the outside guys, and just take advantage of those mismatches. Really, in the end, at the end of the day, really in college football and really in a lot of football in general, it's finding the mismatches and the advantages in the personnel where you can take your mismatch and just plow that into the other team. You're going to run into teams that have they're a mismatch or a matchup nightmare for some reason. That for whatever reason their strengths are really paired well with your weaknesses, and you're going to have to find a way to overcome those things. And really having that opportunity and that ability to use a tight end and a slot receiver where most teams are weakest because their nickel corner is generally not their best corner. Their linebackers generally aren't great at covering tight ends, or if they're going to roll down a strong safety, then you have other advantages that you can use. So having a slot receiver and a tight end that could really make things go for the offense is a great advantage.
All right. This is from Hurricane Andrew on Twitter. Question
Oh,
for the
what an
show.
unfortunate name! That was a dick move by you, my friend.
Carlos, did you hear the feedback from players and staffers that the offense has not opened up yet? Do you feel like that's true? I'm hearing Dawson has 94 new plays installed in this year's offense. Thanks,
I
fellas.
don't
Go
think Dawson
Kings.
has 94 plays total.
Yeah, I look, I wrote about this on one of the first days of practice. Actually, I think it was media day where Dawson talked about stealing plays from other playbooks where these guys were at. Cam Ward, things that made Cam Ward successful at Washington State and elsewhere. Same thing with you know, Damian Martinez. Same thing with Sam Brown. I do think there are new wrinkles to the offense that we haven't seen yet because they haven't really played anybody worth a damn. I think they got up early on Florida and they could have saved some of the stuff. I know they threw that trick play out there at the end with Restrepo throwing the pass that you were kind of upset that they did. But outside of that, I think there's probably a lot they still haven't unveiled, Carlos.
I think there is, but to me, I think there's a sort of a thin line between being creative and overdoing it.
Yeah.
And here's the reason why I say that. When you have talent on the offense and you have a lot of playmakers, there's no need to get too complex with it. You window dress, right? You
Yeah.
can run the same kind of shit over and over again, but you dress it differently to make the defense react to it differently. So you use different formations, personnel groupings, motion, movement to get to the same sorts of plays that you are your bread and butter, but to make the defense react in different ways and change their coverages and alignments and pressures to sort of move with your movement, right?
Hmm.
And I think that's where the key is. If you found some things that Cam Ward does very well, and you found some ways to get guys to football, keep doing those things. Just mask them in different ways. You don't have to incorporate new plays every week. You just have to create new window dressing or ways to get to those plays every week to make things look confusing. That to me are the best offenses do those sorts of things. I mean, look, the Hurricanes in 2001, they didn't do a whole lot of different shit. They lined up in the eye a lot of the time and ran power, they ran lead, they ran basic shit, but they did it in different ways to make
Hmm.
it seem like they weren't running those basic things. So it's to me, it's the more talent you have, the less you have to incorporate in the offense in terms of volume of plays. To me, it's more about how you get to those plays to make it look different.
All right, this is from Rodney King 06 on Twitter. I know that Mark Fletcher had some injuries in high school, but after this last injury, he looks so much faster than last year. Or are my eyes deceiving me? Side note, Manny has been spot on about this team. Um, Thank you for the compliment, Rodney. So is Carlos in a lot of ways too. I wouldn't
No, no, no.
pass
I'm
him
giving
over.
you all the credit, my friend. I'm giving you all the credit. Listen,
Rod,
I ride your back. I write your coattails. I ride your statistics. I ride your information. I
all
write your
right.
articles that I pay $9,000 a month for. And
I got to make money somehow.
Jesus, I'm supplementing your lifestyle.
All right. Rodney, here's what I would say about Mark Fletcher. I think they're being cautious with him in the sense where they're not giving him a heavy workload. I don't know if you noticed, but Jordan Lyle has actually, I think, gotten more snaps even to this point than Mark Fletcher has. And again, I've said this on the Big O show when I've been on the air with him. If you're going to play for a national championship, you're going to play in 16 games now. Like you have an NFL type season. You need bodies to stay fresh. So the fact Miami has been able to sort of lessen the load. But Mark Fletcher's played 38 snaps to this point. Damian Martinez has played 64, and Jordan Lyle has played 28. So no, Fletcher's played 10 more snaps than Lyle, but I think Lyle actually has more carries to this point. So, but my point is, yes, he's going to look fresher and better because he's not having to work as hard, and that's why Mario went out and got Damian Martinez because he knew he couldn't throw the weight of this team on Mark Fletcher coming off a foot injury like that. That's why they had to go out and get somebody.
His carries are more impactful,
Yeah.
and you can see that because he's scoring almost every time he touches. What seems like.
Yeah, he's got 3 touchdowns so far. All right, Armando Izaguirre, AY2 Mondo. Does the performance of DJU, McCall, Leonard impact how Miami sees the need to develop QBs for the future? He's talking about Grayson McCall and Riley Leonard, and of course DJ Uyunglele, the quarterbacks at Florida State, NC State, and Notre Dame. Does it impact how Miami needs to develop QBs for the future? Obviously, we hit big with Cam, but worried we will try this next year and it fails. I actually had a mailbag question about this in our ACC mailbag that's coming out Friday in the Athletic. I think people need to think, Carlos, you remember 2009, 2011, Miami didn't sign a single
Yeah.
quarterback?
Yep.
Remember that?
Yep.
And people were surprised. Oh, why has QBU sucked for so long? Well, you got to the more lottery tickets you spend on a quarterback, the better opportunity you have. It's just like offensive line, it's just like defensive line, it's just like receiver. Um, and look, I think the coaching staff really likes Emory Williams. I think they think he has a lot of potential. They didn't want him to have to play last year. And when he did, he got them a win against Clemson and he, broke his arm trying to save Miami against Florida State.
Yep.
I think he'll have a chance, but I also think Miami's still going to go into the transfer portal after the season and get the best quarterback available because it's
DJ
not so
Lagway.
much, it's not so much about, being loyal to a kid anymore. Nobody's loyal to each other. It's about winning. It's about that's the priority. You can get the best guy available. So you keep taking freshmen, you keep trying to develop them, and you hope that you don't have to go into the transfer portal to find somebody. And I think the other aspect of this as well, to answer your question, Armando, is you do your effing homework. I don't know what Notre Dame thought with Riley Leonard, even though he was my first round pick for the Heisman draft. It was the eighth pick, okay, mind you, it was the eighth pick in the draft. But I
Don't shy
took
away
him
from it now, bro.
because look, I took him because I thought he was going to run the ball a ton and be super effective. I thought Notre Dame was going to probably go undefeated in the regular season or at least get close to it. And I thought, okay, look, if Notre Dame's a top 5 team in the country and he's a big part of it, well, fine. But I never was
But what?
under
So, so,
any.
so what you're saying is this, Manny. Let me get this straight. This whole time, the Florida State thing has been a facade. You have really been a Notre Dame fan this entire
No,
time.
no,
Is what
no,
you're
no.
saying?
I am not. What I am saying is, I knew Riley Leonard could not throw the football like Cam Ward could, right? Like
I
it
knew,
wasn't
I knew,
difficult.
I knew there was something fishy about your ass when I saw that signed Joe Montana poster in your house.
Listen, brother. The point is, DJU and Riley Leonard are not throwing quarterbacks. In college, that's fine. You can get away with that if you're the University of Florida, right? With Tim Tebow, or you're some other school that's going to run your quarterback and play this really like unique kind of, read option type offense.
Like Cam Newton at Auburn.
But Cam, like Miami staff, Shannon Dawson and Mario wanted a guy who could operate the air raid and could throw like an NFL quarterback. They identified the right guy from the get-go. They didn't settle for DJU. They didn't settle for somebody else. They targeted Cam Ward, and that's who they wanted. They got lucky they got him, but I think other schools don't
Well,
have.
there's like 2 million reasons why they got him.
Well, but my point is, like the failures of these other schools is a failure on them for not identifying somebody
Absolutely.
that they needed to run the kind of offense they wanted to run. Mario from the get-go said Cam Ward was my guy. And I'm not trying to reveal anything here, super secretive, but I think this was something they knew last year while Cam Ward was still playing for Washington State. Like that's the way all of these teams operate. They look at guys and say, that guy would be great for our offense. And they do that in week 2 of the season prior, not when the guy puts his name in the transfer portal.
Yeah.
Okay. And they follow him all the way along. I don't know. Notre Dame has a new offensive coordinator this year, Mike Denbrock, who had Jaden Daniels at LSU, the Heisman Trophy winner. Um, NC State, they got Robert Anae in his second year there, but they had no quarterback basically last year. And then Florida State was screwed the moment Jordan Travis got hurt last year. You saw the freshman couldn't do it for him. So they had to get the best available guy for them. I'm not trying to make excuses for any of those teams, but they did a much poorer job evaluating what they needed than Miami did. Give Miami credit for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Miami hit a home run, the biggest home run in the portal, bar none, with Cam Ward. And I think the idea of just getting names in the portal is a problem. You have to fit to your system and get guys that fit within the structure of what it is you're trying to do offensively and defensively. If they don't, then it's not going to work out. Look at Tyler Barron. I mean, he was in a system probably in Tennessee that didn't use him in a way that took advantage of his skills and opportunities. Look at him now in Miami. He's playing in a system that allows him to run free and really wreak havoc off the edge, and he looks like an All-American, right?
Yep.
And
Yeah.
this is a guy that was not putting up that kind of production in Tennessee. He showed flashes, he showed ability, but over there he wasn't playing at this level. Francisco Manoa, he was good at Washington State. He was a solid linebacker, all conference, but he's taken it to a different level in Miami because the system fits him well. He's
Yeah.
allowed to run freer because of that defensive line, and that makes a huge difference. Cam Ward is in the right system. He's the right quarterback for what we're running. He's got the weapons in, specifically for the guys to really find outlets and opportunities for him in Restrepo and Arroyo. And teams just don't do enough of their homework in terms of fitting the guy to the system. And if you are going to get a guy that maybe isn't fit specifically to your system, then maybe you need to adjust your system a little bit to fit the talents of the guy you're bringing in. Because if not, it's going to be a mismatch, and you're going to see a whole lot of shit of what you're seeing now.
I agree. Great discussion.
Or in Florida State's case, you need to put playmakers around DJU because they're out. The guys they have in the receiver
Carlos,
spot
they to me
are
where
not
they
playmakers.
to me where FSU dropped the ball, and you know how much I love to talk about my Seminoles here. To me,
Oh,
where
absolutely.
FSU dropped the ball was receiver and running back. They didn't get enough. Like they don't
Nope.
like
You're right.
they had Trey Benson, who was a really good back, and they
Yep.
didn't really replace him with anybody.
Nope. At all.
That's a
And,
whole
and I
another
think they also
disaster.
failed on the offensive line.
Well, they had, listen, the problem was they invested in those guys. They brought back 7 or 8 guys on that offensive line that have a bunch of starts. The problem is they were never dominant on the offensive
No.
line. They won because those guys were okay and the skill players around them did their job. So, I mean, that's the difference. I
And
think
they
they
had playmakers at receiver.
yeah, that's what the difference was with FSU. All right. This is from Pump 28. Will you be taking your Seminoles to cover -7 against Memphis this weekend? I stayed away from this game on purpose when I did my oddly specific predictions for the Athletic Cardinals. I don't know if you've read those articles that I come out with every single week now, where
Unfortunately, I do.
I don't just predict the scores, but I predict yardage totals and things of that nature to make my life a little bit more hectic and troublesome. I am not taking the Seminoles to cover, but I do think they will find a way to beat Memphis. I just think it's going to be really hard for Florida State to start 0-3.
Buddy,
I would be floored if that happened.
if your boy Mike Norvell loses to Memphis, he's going to end up singing that song. They're going to fire us. Walking in Memphis.
It is, and again, wow, I just don't think it's going to happen. All right,
If it
Hurricane,
happens,
Hurricane Q, 16V lover, Carlos. Uh, what more would you like to see from the offense that you haven't seen or would like to see? For example, I'd like to see a player or two where they roll Cam out. Same question on defense. Go Canes.
again, for me, there's not enough movement in the offense. There's not enough diversity in terms of the personnel groupings and the actual sets, the
Hmm.
formations. I'd like to see them to be able to get open on first moves, not have Cam Ward just run around back there until somebody pops open. That to me is the main concern. I'd like to see that. Defensively, I'm pretty happy. The only concern I have is they're going to run into a quarterback that can buy time like a Cam Ward and move
Hmm.
around the pocket, and they're going to get one-on-one jump balls against that secondary. I want to see how they react to that. And I also want to see how they react to an offensive line that can protect against that pressure and a quarterback's able to get the ball down the field. Those are the challenges that I'm going to see. When those challenges arise, then we'll know who Miami truly is.
All right. Brent Peterson says he's got a hot take for us. Beat Pete 91-21. Miami goes unbeaten in the regular season and plays in the national championship game. They also beat FSU by 45 in October. He's
Okay.
feeling good, Brent. He's
Oh,
feeling good.
he's feeling great, and whatever he's feeling good on, if you could mail that to me, DM me. Although
Yeah.
I'm on a social media, listen, I'm on a social media detox. I'm telling you right now. So anybody who's trying to hit me up on X, Twitter, you don't have my Instagram, so nobody's hitting me up on Instagram. But I've shut both down. Not shut them down, but I deleted them off my phone.
Hmm.
Taking 30 days off from the social media.
All right. That's listen, we all got to give something up, right? That's if it's healthy for you, brother, I'm happy for you. All right, this is Jason Real Hip Hop. After two games, how do you feel this team matches up against the rest of the schedule? Any teams do you feel provide a greater challenge than before now that the season is underway? Jason, the only team that I look at a little bit differently maybe than I did prior to the start of the season is Syracuse
Yep,
in terms of what they can do offensively. I think they're a much bigger threat than I thought they would be just because
agree.
Kyle McCord is playing at a high level.
He's a
He's
legitimate
got
quarterback.
weapons. He's got legitimate weapons in Arande Gazin and Tabor Penn, I think is the kid's name, the other receiver. Um, Quinn Allen is a solid running back. That's going to be a tough team. That's going to be a tough game to win at the end of the season. And you hope Miami has a trip locked up to the ACC championship game by then. I'm just
Yeah,
saying. I think that's a tougher game.
yeah. I
But
think I think facing Rondé Gadsden, Irving Fryer, Keith Jackson is going to be a problem for the Hurricanes on the down stretch.
Carson Fox, this is a Pitt fan, Carlos, because now I've got fans from other teams messaging me on Twitter.
Jesus, now we're going to get hate from other markets. I like it.
Pitt by a touchdown in the backyard brawl. One team has Garrett Green and the other does not. Whether through the air or the ground, Pitt won't be able to keep up with him. I did pick Pitt to win this game, Carson, in my oddly specific predictions. Make sure you read it if you haven't already. All right.
Carson, better yet. Here's what I'll say about the backyard brawl. Who cares?
Tony Perez, Big Chilean 63. Realizing they've only played two games, but do you think Mario will be able to replicate this type of success next year? Does he go to the portal for a starting QB again? Tony, I think what travels in college football year to year to year is offensive and defensive line play.
Yep,
If you have elite offensive and defensive linemen every year, you can
you got a
beat
shot.
Alabama, Georgia, and Ohio State. You can beat those teams. And you go back, look at the national championship seasons that Miami won, and they were playing for it every year. Look at the offensive and defensive lines, the amount of guys that they turned out in the NFL every single year. That's
Yep,
why Mario Cristobal was the right hire for this program. End of story. Period.
absolutely. It can make average to slightly above average skill players look a lot better.
Absolutely. Scary Rhombus, your favorite. Uh,
Yes,
what do you think of Mario leaving Cam in games as long as he has so
I
far?
hate it. I hate it. I really fucking hate it. I'm seeing Cam in the fourth quarter against FAMU or late in the third, and I'm like, what the hell is this guy doing out there, man? Like, why? Why are we
Leapfrogging people into the end zone.
why are we tempting fate like this? Like he just wants an ACL or an MCL to snap, just like doing nothing out there. For what, dude? For what? What's the point? There is no point. Get Reese Poffenmammer, Poffenbarger,
Poffenbarger. Poffenbarger.
Poffen, the Poffen carpetbagger out there and let him run the offense for a little bit. Get Cam Ward the fuck off the field. Get him off the field. I don't want to see it.
All right. This is from Champa Bay, Kane. Have tickets to the Miami VT game. First time going to a game in Miami. What would be some stuff to plan to do in Miami, Canes related or not, for the wife and I on a
That
weekend
is
in
okay.
Miami?
The wife and I. Okay, thank you for qualifying that because I was that could
You-
be that could be a
You're
deadly
you're gonna
question.
send him to
I
an adult
was no.
establishment.
There's a place that's got great lemon pepper wings out here, and I'm
Okay.
not going to disclose the place
All right.
because the people that know about it know about it. But what I'm going to say is that for you and the wife, it depends what you're into. Like if you are from out of town and you are not familiar with Cuban food, I would suggest a Cuban spot, right? You could do like you could do the touristy thing where Versailles or La Carreta. There's some great spots all over town, but you could do that. You could do, go to the beach clearly if you want to do that. South Beach, probably not. I would
I,
do like North Beach.
I'm going to do the company line here, Carlos. I'm going to tell them to go to the University of Miami Sports Hall of Fame because they actually do have some really cool things to see there. I don't know if you've been there or how long it's been since you've been there, but they do have the Seminole War Canoe uh in the building. They also have a ton of other old school stuff. So if you're a Hurricanes fan and you just want to see some Hurricanes related stuff, stop by campus, dude. Like it's open. Call and find out.
That's a good thing to do. I would also say, listen, if you want to see where the Hurricanes originally played and there's a Marlins game that weekend, go to the game at that stadium where the Orange Bowl went to die.
Yeah.
Uh, and thank David Sampson for that.
Speaking of Samson, Mike Jones, Jonesy713 says, "What's up with Samson? Seems like he isn't even second string. Thought that dude was a five-star. He seems like portal bait next year, but that's just me." Well,
He's working very hard on his pancake batter mix, getting that down. So obviously football is secondary to the pancake batter mix. You got to get that recipe down right. or else you're just gonna have gummy pancakes, and nobody likes gummy pancakes.
I think the problem is, guys, that um, Mari recruits so well the position that you can take a five-star guy who plays in, where's he from? Massachusetts,
Right.
the hotbed of high school football.
Yeah.
And he can come in here and need more time to develop maybe than other guys because other guys are more prepared.
Yeah.
I think Samson Ogolola is a talent. I think he has lots of ability. I think he needs to be coached up. And I think that's the bottom line. I think Miami wants to spend time developing him and making him into the player that he can be. I think he's a legitimate left tackle prospect. He needs time to develop. That's
And
all.
ultimately, what you want is competition, right? That's what you want on the roster. You
Right.
want enough guys where he's got to earn it. He's got to take his game to a different level to be able to take that left tackle spot. It's not going to be given to him, which is a great thing because before, over the last 20 years, we've seen a lot of guys getting playing time or getting on the field because there is no competition. There's nobody behind them that you can rely on. Like a guy coming in 5 in the morning the day before a game, having DUIs and smoked a ton of weed and then ends up throwing interceptions at said Marlins Field against FIU. But those are the things that you end up with when you don't have competition on the roster.
Yeah. We have about eight more questions here, but I don't think we're gonna get to all of them here. So I'm gonna
Do it,
cut to the
Manny.
chase,
Do it. I
guys.
dare you to do all
I,
eight rapid
I
fire.
I apologize. I apologize. Stop Cop City. Taco Thunder 5 says, is there any realistic slash legal chance some of the new ACC schools, Cal and Stanford, could go back to the Pac-12? He's of course referencing today's news regarding the Pac-12 picking up four Mountain West schools and the reporting that maybe Cal and Stanford would go back out west to join the Pac-8 essentially. I, I, working at the Athletic, I get to work with a lot of people. I told you I sat down with Jim Phillips, the ACC commissioner, prior to the start of the season, and had a long conversation about Florida State and Clemson and everything else going on with the league. As long as the grant of rights is not defeated in court, Carlos, Cal and Stanford will be in the ACC next season. And I don't think they want to go back. I think both of those schools feel that even though they will be traveling 24,000 miles this year, Cal will, to get to all their football games round trip. I think they feel like the ACC is where they want to be. Let's not forget, it's Oregon State, Washington State, Boise State, San Diego State, Fresno State, and I'm
A
forgetting
lot of
one more.
states. A lot of
A
states.
lot, a lot of G5 type schools, and the Pac-12 might end up becoming the fifth best conference in college football, but that doesn't guarantee you an automatic bid into the college football playoff every single year. So it just doesn't make sense to me that something like that would happen. All right. This is from Rashawn 954. What's your opinion on Deion Sanders as a Power Four head coach? And Manny, what's your opinion on him or any head coach having an adversarial relationship with the local media? Well, Rashawn, as a member of the local media, national media, nobody wants to be arguing and fighting with the head coach and getting into public spats. But I'll say this: I want fans to understand something. Every local beat writer who covers their team wants their team to win because A, they don't want to cover a crappy losing season, and B, because it's better for business if their team wins. There's more people who read when they win. Now, the only time that changes is when the coach is going to get fired, because then a lot more people will tune in if the coach is going to get fired.
Yep.
But in Deion Sanders' case, he is not going to get fired at Colorado. He's in the midst of potentially another 500 type season. If the defense and the offensive line figure things out. And so having an adversary relationship doesn't help any of those guys covering the team. So for me, and as far as my opinion on Dion, I don't think he's invested in anything more than his children and the kids that he likes to coach. And
I
I
agree.
don't think he cares. I don't think he's trying to win a national championship at Colorado. I don't think he thinks it's even possible. He knows it's not possible. He's been around championship programs. So for him, this is about coaching his kids, in my opinion, and getting them to the highest level possible, and getting them to the NFL and whatnot, and enjoying the experience of coaching them. Outside of that, I don't think he's fully invested. He doesn't recruit like he's fully invested.
And this is why I do the podcast with you, and this is why I pay, $300 a month to sign up to the Athletic when everybody else pays 30 cents.
Yep, exactly. PJ O'Leary on Twitter says, since 2000, the ACC is 4-5 in championship or playoff games. Currently, the Big 12 is 0-1. Why does anyone believe the Big 12 is equal or better than the ACC? All right. If you follow me on Twitter, I tweeted this out on Monday because narratives like to get spun this early in the season, Carlos. The SEC people love to get on there and say, "Oh, we are the best conference that God created. We are the greatest thing since sliced bread." And then the Big Ten likes to pretend that it's the greatest, the second best conference, or the best conference in college football because they've got Ohio State and they had Michigan last year that won the national championship. Carlos, do you know what the records of the Power Four conferences are against one another? Do you know?
I believe, if I'm not mistaken, they're pretty close to one another. I think the ACC is maybe second amongst the Power Four.
They're all 500, Carlos. The ACC is 5-5 versus the other Power Four schools. The Big Ten is 4-4. The Big 12 is 5-5, and the SEC is 5-5. Uh, you can sit here and say the ACC is a crap conference because Georgia smashed Clemson and because Tennessee smashed NC State. But then I think you also got to turn around and say, well, what happened to Auburn, who was a 12 and a half point favorite at home? They lost.
Against the Kombucha Cal Bears.
Right. What about Miami's 24-point win in the swamp? Oh, the Gators are terrible. No, that's not the way it works, guys.
No, you
You
can't
don't
pick and
just
choose.
get to pick and choose your arguments. Yes, the SEC as a conference has better elite teams. They have a deeper base than the ACC does. But the Big 12? No, it's not equal. It's not better than the ACC.
I
I don't
love
want to hear any of those
The
arguments.
Iverson in your tone there.
Listen, I got to give it. I got to dish it out every once in a while, brother. All right, I'm gonna wrap things up for tonight's show here, Carlos. Any final thoughts from you? I want people to make sure they follow you on Twitter at
Or don't, because I'm not gonna be posting in the next 30 days.
all right, okay, well, where should they
I'll
follow you?
just post my shows. That's about it. I'll throw the link up there. But don't expect any responses to me if you tweet at me.
All right. They can still follow you at
MIA Ledo.
all right, there you go. You can follow him at MIA Ledo. You can listen to his podcast wherever you download his podcast. Make sure you subscribe and follow the White Red Podcast. Make sure you subscribe for The Athletic. Thanks for helping me out again, Carlos.
Hey, no problem, man. I'm always glad to help here, either through the podcast or financially by paying $6,000 a month for your athletic subscription.
My kids love you. Thank you.
I appreciate it.